Welcome to Cut the Crop, keeping you in the know about everything you grow. Researchers, growers and other interesting folk delivering insights and information on topics ranging from agronomy to profitability. Brought to you by the Foundation for Arable Research.
Hello and welcome to Cut the Crop. My name's Alison Stewart and I'm your host for this episode. And today my guest is Ivan Lawrie from FAR. Welcome, Ivan.
Hi, Alison. Thank you.
And we're going to be talking about the opportunities for growing arable crops for plant protein. And I guess this is, there's been lots of hype globally around this whole space, and New Zealand is exploring, what options there are for New Zealand to be able to grow some plant protein crops and what products might be out there. So let's just start talking about, are these opportunities that people keep talking about real? I mean, can New Zealand realistically, compete in the marketplace in the plant protein space?
I think it all depends on how important the provenance of the ingredients is to the end product. And these are the things that we're trying to transmit and create consumer awareness about. The lowest common denominator is producing a highly processed product where the ingredients become blind to the end consumer. And that is something that we want to avoid, because that just becomes one more commodity for the grower. So in terms of the ability to supply, I have no doubt New Zealand can produce more legumes to supply this. In terms of where that price parity with imported commodities becomes a problem for the processor, that is the big question, and that is why market studies and consumer studies are being conducted.
So before we talk about some of the market stuff, what range of crops are we talking about when we talk about plant protein crops?
Mainly we're referring to pulses, and those that are commercialized internationally as dried pulses, such as dry peas, beans, fava beans, potentially soybeans. All of these are high protein content crops of which the extraction is feasible. There are also elements to what proteins are the ones that need to be extracted for the different food products.
So if we look at the market research that's been done, because I know that FAR has been involved in some of this in collaboration with companies, and we know that there's been a number of reports written by other agencies, what has come out of these reports? Has it been positive enough for people to start, thinking that it is feasible for us to be able to, produce some, I guess, added value protein products?
So I personally think that the report that has been conducted and which FAR helped fund has been very positive. First and foremost, it's been very informative. Some of these reports that we conduct don't always give you new information or things that we didn't already know. This is not the case. I personally think PricewaterhouseCoopers has done a very good job in conducting the report and done a serious study of the market. The report itself focuses on three aspects. It focuses on the aspect of what the market is out there for these plant protein products. Secondly, it looks at the cost and feasibility of establishing an extraction facility within New Zealand. And thirdly, it looks at it from the grower perspective to see what are the returns that would be required to make this a new proposition for growers, rather than just getting the same commodity prices you would get for peas or beans anyway.
Yeah, so it was this particular report that we've been involved in, it was specifically around peas and beans.
So this report specifically focused on the potential for extraction from dried peas or dried fava beans in New Zealand. They are crops that are in very different stages of development within New Zealand. I mean, peas are part of the arable industry and have been part of the arable industry for many, many years. And we produce anywhere between 20,000 to 50,000 tons of peas a year from the arable industry, and that depends a lot on the market and what the contracts are out for growing these peas. We grow different kinds of peas for feed, peas for human consumption, and a growing market has been over the last year growing peas for seed for the vegetable market, which are wrinkle peas, slightly different varieties.
The report, if growers wanted to access it and read it in full, where could they get access to it?
So the report is fully available on the FAR website, and just look at it from the pea protein report. I think if you Google it, it will also point you in the right direction. We are hosting the report on the website.
And we should mention the company that we were in collaboration with.
So we've been collaborating now for almost 2 years, right from the beginning of when this was being looked at, with Off-Piste. It's a startup company from Auckland, with a great deal of experience in the Asian markets for plant protein products. And they have come back to New Zealand and decided to set up here. And right from the beginning, one of their objectives was, could they work with growers so that the pea protein or bean or other pulse protein that is extracted could come from New Zealand and not from overseas? Because we've had examples of companies that have been operating in New Zealand market for some time who use Canadian pea protein extract for their product. And the reason for that is we just have not got the extraction facilities in New Zealand set up for that.
And so, I mean, obviously, one of the challenges that we always have when we hear people talking about, a new crop opportunity is that sometimes people don't necessarily fully understand that these crops have to fit into a rotation and that you're not growing these crops in continuous monoculture. And so it's really important that you're evaluating that crop opportunity against the existing ones that are already in your rotation.
Absolutely. I mean, look, pulses have always been a beneficial part of the rotation because of their ability to fix nitrogen naturally. And in general, traditional arable rotations throughout the world would include legumes in the rotation. Obviously, peas are in the ground for 4 months, 5 at the very latest when you're harvesting dried peas. That does not constitute a monoculture. There is no chance that you would be growing peas again on that paddock in the following year. So the notion that people have around, we will replace the whole of the Canterbury Plains and sow the whole thing in peas is really ridiculous. And some members of the general public might not understand. So I think education is key. Apart from that, the arable industry caters for a wide range of markets. Somebody asked on a Twitter feed the other day around the consumer. And I pointed out in talking about this pea protein project that it's not the consumer, it's consumers, and we have consumers with different tastes. And I think the arable industry is in a position to supply a range of markets. Among those, a growing trend around consuming plant-based products that might replace part of the diet, but not necessarily 100% of people's diets, and that there is still room for us to be able to increase that and still supply our other markets within New Zealand.
So this is very much, looking at it from the point of view, this is not something that's going to undermine our existing sort of animal protein industries, that it's just going to be complementary and that there is more than enough markets out there to be able to, take all of the products that we might want to produce.
Absolutely. I mean, as I say, there are multiple consumer appetites, and in recent work that FAR has done for other crops, we have been really surprised by the results of our surveys in terms of what people want when they buy food. And some of it is not driven by health, and some of it is not necessarily driven by sustainable practice, and some of it is not necessarily driven by provenance. There are different people interested in different attributes of food. I think increasingly, certainly people want to know that their food has been produced in a way that is sustainable, both from an economic perspective, providing good returns to growers, and environmentally, and that the provenance story definitely helps when people are looking at a product that has been made in New Zealand. But do they know the full story? Is it just the product's been made in New Zealand, or are the ingredients that make up that product also grown in New Zealand? So when we want to tell that story, we want to tell the full story.
That's right. It's got to be authentic. You know, there's a lot of marketing that goes on that talks about New Zealand grown, but when you sort of scratch the surface, actually there's only a tiny bit that might be New Zealand grown. So what about what do you think are the biggest challenges to making this happen for New Zealand?
So in terms of infrastructure, there's a big barrier to get over at this stage, which is the cost of a good facility for pea protein extraction. From the recent study we've conducted, suggests that might be in the order of $50 million. Now, that is a big outlay of cash for a factory that might only be producing one ingredient for one product. Hence, there's a range of options there where maybe either to get that up and running, there could be a requirement for some government contribution to make this happen and help it establish. The other option, of course, is some cooperative type association between growers and end users that could help fund the establishment of a facility like that. And thirdly, there's an opportunity that it could be a factory that not only extracts plant protein from peas and beans, but might be used for multiple extraction processes, and therefore in a smaller country like New Zealand gives the opportunity for that plant to be busy 365 days of the year doing other things.
And I mean, 50 million sounds a lot of money, but when you look at the investments that are going on around the world in all sorts of different, sort of new sort of product opportunities, if the business case stacks up, then 50 million investment isn't a huge amount of money. The question for New Zealand is, how do we make the business case? I mean, if it was just, going into a domestic market at a commodity price, the business case will never stack up. So there's got to be some value add. There's got to be some sort of premium. There's got to be, yes, we want to service the domestic market. There probably has to be an export market associated with it to make that onshore processing business case stack up.
Absolutely. I mean, everything that the company, as I say, that we're working with on this project has a strong export focus, and they see, and because the company has expertise in the Asian market, they see Southeast Asia as a target market for these products. But definitely New Zealand in itself provides a platform for at least, we would expect that New Zealanders have access to products in the marketplace with ingredients that have been made in New Zealand. That would be nice to know and be nice to and nice to expect. And then on a scale where to justify a $50 million investment in a factory, we would all obviously need to be looking at export markets for that.
Yeah. So if, we look 10 years in the future and, suddenly everybody was really interested in, New Zealand grown sort of protein products, Do we have the capacity to sort of grow enough in New Zealand? I mean, given the fact that we operate such an integrated, diversified, mixed rotation, we're not growing, soybean and peas, in large-scale monoculture in the way that some countries overseas are. Do we actually have the capacity to deliver?
The study suggests that we do. If you look at Canterbury Plains today, only about 11% of the surface is used in arable crops. So there's not only the opportunity to increase the presence of peas and beans within the arable rotation, but there's also an opportunity that might become a part of the on-farm production of other sectors. So there is an opportunity for the livestock sectors to grow some crop on farm and supply the arable industry, hence, in a way, becoming arable farmers themselves, I guess. We produce, as I said today, anywhere between 20,000 and 50,000 tons of peas every year, and that's quite flexible. If we put it into tonnage, that's probably only 10 to 15,000 hectares of peas that are grown out of an arable production estimated at about 250,000. So there's room there for increasing the frequency of these crops in the rotation, which will probably come at the expense of some other crops, but it all depends on the relative returns that we can get. At the moment, talking about last year's figures, peas were only returning gross margins between $1,600 and, in the very best cases, $2,000 a hectare. So that is hardly competitive with other crops. First, for example, high-end seed crops, but it's also certainly not competitive with, for example, the dairy industry. So in order for that to all work, there's just got to be higher returns for growers. If not, it's not going to be justifiable.
Yeah. And I think that that's the key thing, that, all those companies out there that are exploring these opportunities, they have to recognise that they won't have, supply if they don't have a business case that returns a certain amount of value back to the grower, and it's got to be higher than they've got at the moment.
By collaborating with these companies and working the way we are, there's a good exchange of information where growers start to learn about the problems that processors and distributors have of products, and vice versa. These manufacturers are learning about the returns that growers are actually getting and how that needs to be increased if we're going to extract value from that New Zealand provenance story. Yeah.
So here's a bit of a sort of curly question, because I know that we always get this. Why is FAR, aligning itself with, one particular company or a small group of companies, looking at potentially an opportunity that might only benefit, certain growers in certain regions?
So The reason we do that is when somebody comes and says, we have a product and we have a market for this product, they're actually presenting us with part of a solution to our arable quandary around getting new crops in the ground or new products for new crops. Growing the crop for the most part and the agronomy of the crop is, we have expertise in the country within FAR, within our industries, to grow peas as well as anywhere else in the world and to grow a quality product. The problem has always been for us creating a market for that product or creating new products. So when somebody appears on our doorstep and says, look, we have a new product, we have a market for the product, what we need to address is the issue of supply, it actually makes FAR's work easier to work on what product are we going to supply, what varieties are required, what are the qualities within the particular types of protein that are required, and we can fine-tune that and work with the seed industry to supply. The hardest bit for us is always not has been not having the expertise at the other end. The other attractive part of these collaborations is that they're always trying to look at how they can incorporate the growers into the discussion and potentially make them participate in the value chain, because that is something we're really, really driving.
And the key thing is that we cannot open up these new opportunities for the entire industry, from day one. That, you have to start with, a smaller sort of plan. And if it's successful, then it will open up that wider opportunity. And of course, FAR is looking at a number of different opportunities that are likely to benefit, different regions throughout the country.
I think that's key. If everybody jumps on the same bandwagon and wants to grow the same crop for the same end market and have a whole range of similar products, that's only going to make the market worse. So what we do need is for people to be creative and in the regions work with these entrepreneur-type people who are developing new products and find opportunities right through New Zealand for different crops that might work.
Yeah. And I mean, that's our strategy at FAR is, try and look for value-add opportunities and not have everyone jumping onto that bandwagon and driving the price down, which unfortunately has happened in a number of cases in New Zealand over the years.
And I think we're in an extraordinary situation at the moment that we can capture and use as an opportunity. Yes, we have higher input costs. Yes, we have higher fuel costs. Yes, we have issues with transport internationally and nationally. But the opportunity created by the fact that all of a sudden we've realized the connectivity of the world can be interrupted due to external events, it makes us think about how much more can we rely on our own production to create products within New Zealand. And
internationally, we are a trusted supplier for all sorts of reasons. And the arable industry, needs to be able to explore those export opportunities in the same way as other industries has. So, I guess time will tell how successful we're going to be in this space. But, FAR is doing the best it can to support the growers to be able to open up these opportunities. And I know that this is an area that you have been working really hard on. So thank you very much, Ivan.
Oh, very welcome. Thank you.
And thank you very much, listeners. Have a great day on the farm.
Thanks for tuning in to Cut the Crop, presented to you by FAR. If you'd like to know more about any of the topics discussed or have any suggestions for future topics, go to www.cutthecrop.co.nz.